Yo, so I'm basically a completely different person now that I did NoFap for over a year. Still on NoFap. It's been like a year and a couple of months, to be honest. And if you're in a position where you're fapping like a few times a week, once or twice during the damn day, if you have a partner, if you find yourself and you're still masturbating, if you're watching porn too often or find yourself going to porn, or if you have premature ejaculation, or if you have no motivation to go out and talk to people of the opposite sex, or you have no motivation of if you don't even have a thought in your mind right now, like, oh, I'd like to have a long-term partner, then I'd suggest listening to this podcast and like really diving deep with it. And especially like also if you want to like claim your truth, be the best version of yourself, get unlimited energy, have clarity, like absolute massive brain performance, and look and feel the best you've ever felt in your life, then I highly suggest like listening to this video and this podcast, because this stuff is like genuinely changed my life, this whole NoFap experience. So if you guys are first time here to the podcast, welcome. I have a whole bunch of resources in terms of coaching, joining like a training program in the gym, a bone broth discount, and a recipe ebook, all linked below. And if you get any value out of this podcast, please leave a like, share, and subscribe, especially if it's on Apple Podcasts. That really helps with everything, and would really appreciate a short story share. If you like have Instagram, go on and share it on your story. That would be absolutely fantastic. And I'm happy to answer any questions or comments, guys. Just chuck them below or send me a DM. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this, because this is a topic that I think has had some serious traction when I've talked about it beforehand, and it's still not talked about enough, I believe. And I'm going to get real raw and vulnerable in this and talk about, right in the deep end of everything. So I hope you guys enjoy this one, because this is like literally and genuinely changed my life for the better, and have learned so much, not only about myself, but just like about the world as well. So why did I choose to stop masturbating and get on the NoFap train? Well, I was in a relationship and that was going shit, to be honest. We were just on two different paths and we just kept trying to make it work. We kept trying to make it work, but it wasn't going to happen. And because you have living in a house and you're having all of those emotional stresses and, the relationship pangs, whatever's happening. Essentially what happens is, as like a release from that, the sexual polarization just happened. We just weren't polarized to each other. So I started, and even though we did have some sort of sexual relationship, I was masturbating heaps at the same time as well. Like I was masturbating, even once or twice a day. And it wasn't even just for the sake of the relationship. It was just because like I was sad and I was down and I was like, oh, there's nothing else better to do. And then because I was down about that, I wasn't focused on my business, wasn't focused on my career, wasn't focused on my training, wasn't focusing on my exercising, wasn't focusing on my health, wasn't focusing on learning and growing and being the best optimized version of myself. And so instead, whenever I felt pressure, I would masturbate and feel better straight away. And the porn just got dirtier and dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, to the point where every time you masturbate or have a wank, you just think to yourself, you're like, I'm a bad man. You think, God damn, how did I do that, Corey? What are you doing? So it got to that stage and it was just like, you just feel guilty for wanking. You're just like, all right, I got to close these 50 tabs down that I had open on my phone, and all the different stills and all these other things. Like, yeah, I got to get rid of those, because that's like, it's not healthy. And I'll get into why that reason. So I was very there, and there's actually really interesting. I was watching like a YouTube video before this on this study that they did with rats, and they had this scientist, and he talked about he did this study where they had two rats, put them in a cage. One had water, one had cocaine, and the rats that started having the cocaine basically kept having cocaine. When they're in the individual cages, it would keep having cocaine until it overdosed and died. But then they made like a rat party house and just had all these different rats in there and all these different like fun things that rats can do to keep them stimulated. They had water and cocaine, and the rats didn't touch the cocaine, which is very interesting, because they had their needs met, their social needs met. So whenever you're feeling social stress, and it was really interesting in that video as well, they did say that there was a study of like millennials, 25% of millennials have no close friends. So in terms of like why that's actually happening, is just there's just some sort of needs within yourself, socially, psychologically, or spiritually, which are making or causing you to end up masturbating or jumping on the porn train. It's very interesting because just jumped on full sort of, NoFap or no ejaculation unless it's sex. And yes, it's been like a year and a couple months now. So that's sort of the reason why I jumped on. I was learning at the time. I was listening to all these Ben Greenfield podcasts on sex. I was researching David Dieter. I was researching John Gray. I was researching Mantak Chia and all of these different like sex gurus just to understand what was happening with myself. Because whenever there's something happening, I'm like with myself, I'm like, all right, I got to learn to sort this out first before I get on with anything else. And so I learned as much as I could. And after listening to some people just talking about like NoFap and no ejaculation, and John Gray talked about his experience of like 9 years of celibacy, I was like, what? And what made sense was at this time, because I research high performers, because I coach high performers all the time. Like I'm coaching all these high performers, higher achievers, people making crazy amounts of money, all this business success and high performing athletes, stuff like that. And being an athlete myself, every time I was competing for a bodybuilding competition, I would like the 2 months out or a month out, I'd just go celibate. I just wouldn't ejaculate. There was like not a crazy, like I'd still have sex, but there wasn't like a, whoa, I need to have sex all the time kind of vibe going on. So, and when I was listening to some of these high performers and higher achievers, they would talk about when they were writing or performing or getting ready for something, they just naturally become celibate, or they'd naturally stop masturbating or stop ejaculating or stop their pursuit for sex just because they're so laser focused on something. And I was like, well, when I was getting ready for my bodybuilding shows was literally when I was the best, most elite, optimized version of myself. I was literally felt on top of the world, felt like a king. I was crushing not just personal goals with the competing, but my relationships were better. Family relationships were better. I was progressing in my career like crazy. I was getting some really high quality clients and coaching them, and we were getting like awesome results. So that was happening. I was building all of these online systems. I was networking with people, just started coming in to my life, which was absolutely fantastic. And I thought, well, at the moment, it's a bit of a low because of being in this relationship, it's starting to split off. We're going separate paths. So why don't I just do all of the things that I do when I'm the best version of myself? And one of those is I'm celibate. I'm like, okay, cool. So after researching all these people and having that sort of realization, I went, well, I'm just going to quit it. Like, I don't know where this is going to go, but right now I feel that I just need to completely quit it. Semen retention, no fap, no ejaculation, unless it's sex. And if it is sex, ejaculate once a week only. And I know if you're listening to that and you're like, what the hell is that? That's a whole different podcast. And I'll get into that in a different one another day, because that is some crazy facts around only ejaculating once a week, once a fortnight, even if you're in a relationship. Dun, dun, dun. Anyway, so I ended up deciding, I was like, done. I'm absolutely done with this. And I'd like to share with you this, my experience of like what actually happens. This is the experience, this is the timeline of what happens when you quit masturbating. The first thing is, especially, I don't know for girls, especially if you're a guy, is, oh my goodness, you get horny. I mean, like you're looking at the side of buses and like there'll be like a shampoo girl like flicking her hair on the side of a bus on like an image on a poster, and you're like, oh my God. Next minute, raging boner. What is wrong with me? So it was quite overwhelming. The first like 2 days is sort of like, it's not too bad. It's like normal, I guess. But then like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh day, extreme, I could say the least, like really extreme, to the point where you're filled with so much lust and libido and life energy, and it just goes straight to your dick, to be completely honest, or your genitals, and you're raging, you're pulsating, and you're like, what is this overwhelming energy? This is insane. How am I going to last? And one of the main motivations was when I was like splitting off with my partner, was, how am I going to get a new girlfriend? How am I going to find like a long-term relationship or a partner, someone to settle down and not settle down, I hate that term, but live life as best as possible with. And one of the things was, well, I'm going to have to stop, because this is killing my motivation. Like masturbation was killing my motivation for gym, life, to find a partner, everything else. Because I'm going, well, if I'm tired or bored or lonely, whatever it is, boom, let's just masturbate, feel better. That's the social needs thing of not being met. And I didn't realize that unconsciously. So yeah, within like the first like week to 2 weeks, it is overwhelming, and you sort of really have to deal with that, because it's it's crazy. However, it's after a certain period of time of it consistently happening it does go away, but consistently happening every day for a few days, you start to think about it a little bit differently. And instead of just being like, whoa, this is so hectic, it's like, well, what do I do with this energy? Like, and this is so much, like how's it going to be? And you start really kind of enjoying the lust. And like, as a guy, for myself, like how I reflected in my own mind was like, man, I'm really quite proud to have this lustful energy, and being able to like enjoy it, because it's like, oh, this is fantastic. And this is how I'm supposed to feel with a partner. And like my libido with my ex-partner in that time of the relationship container that we had when it was ending, like that libido energy was not there, and I didn't enjoy any of it for her. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Imagine if I got to share this with someone. This would be like great. But before that, let's sort myself out. So the energy just went absolutely through the roof. And I started using it. I started focusing on my life. I started creating different business programs. I started it's really interesting, because if you read books like The Origins and History of Consciousness, or A Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung, or any of Friedrich Nietzsche's stuff, and they talk about libido energy, it's not just sex and lust energy, it's like a lot of life energy that comes from other stuff. But lust is a large component in that. And what it really does is it helps your creation ability and your creative skills and your creative mind to just get completely juiced up so that you can just create as best as possible. And I created like programs on programs and theories and diagrams and all of this different awesome stuff, not for only for people, but for myself and with my coaching clients. And I would start explaining all these things, and they're like, whoa, that's fantastic. All that stuff's amazing. And it was really cool. I just felt like I was literally possessed by, possessed by like life energy, and possessed to absolutely crush and fulfill my purpose in life. It's just like so fantastic. And then after the 4 to 7 weeks, when you hit like that mark, it's a little bit difficult, because you do get the sort of little bits of frustration, because it still hasn't exactly gone away yet. You haven't like internalized the feeling of the lust and libido energy, and you get a little bit frustrated, and that's when it's tempting. Your ego comes up, because it's like, no, you need to feel connected. And when you ejaculate, oxytocin releases and you feel like connection. So within that period of time, it's very important to like hang out with people that you love, just like close friends and family and stuff like that, just to let like that, to satisfy that connection part of yourself, because otherwise your ego is going to come up with any sort of crazy way to help you, like to catch up on you, to make sure that you're in a situation where it's going to be easy for you to give in. So like, and it will happen in terms of either masturbating or phone, or the universe will test you as well. It will send something out where you somehow unconsciously see a whole bunch of porn, or you'll be talking to someone. Let's just say, like, this didn't happen to me, but just as an example, like if you get on a phone and it's all COVID, so you're talking and you're sexting someone, and next minute nothing really happens in the sexting, there's no climax at the end there, but then you're left ready to go, and you're like, well, I can watch some porn now and ejaculate and fap right now. So like the universe will test you in weird ways to get you into a position to be like, how bad do you really want this, and how much do you want this energy and stuff, and are you going to stuff up or are you not going to stuff up? Like, how committed are you to your word? Because I believe 100% commitment is a breeze, and 99% commitment is a bitch. And I had to 100% commit to this. So around the 4 to 7 week mark was when it got difficult, because I was tested in all these different ways. However, I overcome it, and it wasn't as hard as what you think when you're 100% committed, because I just went, I'm going to quit it. So anytime anything popped up into my brain internally, how I deal with that, I'm like, well, there's no point doing this. I'm 100% committed to it. So like, it's the same as, breathing or waking up and brushing your teeth. Like it's easy to say no, because I was just so committed to it. And after the 7 to 8 week mark, life just got like super clear, like really clear. I got really clear on my passions, my purpose, my creative ability. And what was really awesome was I really got in touch with myself sexually, lustfully, and in love vibes. One of the things which was awesome, I had all these different crazy reflective moments in my own mind, was actually really desiring a long-term partner. I think as a guy, it's very easy to chase the pretty girl, go out there and, try and have sex with as young man culture is when you're in your teens. I'm not saying it is definitely a thing. It's around, because experienced it myself, is, oh, let's just go get with as many people as possible, or get with as many good looking people as possible. Let's just have sex with everyone. Woo, because sex is new. Wee, look at me. But as soon as like the masturbation sort of stopped, unconsciously what happened was my brain went to that again. And I noticed, like, no, that's not what I want at all as a guy. Like, as a dude, like, that is not what I want at all. Like, I feel like a little bit more protective over my sex and my lust and libido energy. And it's like, well, if I'm going to share this with someone, like, it's going to need to be like a longer term partner, or someone that I really genuinely connect with, because I'm more motivated for that. Does that mean that, like, oh, not to go out and have sex with people? Absolutely not. I believe that you definitely got to try before you buy, like, that's for sure. And if you're extremely attracted to someone and want to share a lustful experience, then my goodness, absolutely go for it. And myself, I encourage myself to do that as well if the opportunity arises, because sex is just one of those beautiful things that you can have. But it was just increase the motivation to not only just follow along with that, but to sort of go through the motions, like think about people and people that you choose. Like, okay, everyone that you choose or try to get with, maybe they should have potential to be a long-term partner or something like that. So you don't feel guilty after you have sex. It was just a crazy revolution, like realization to have, and like really motivated. And it's like, well, if I want to get someone who I want to have a relationship like that with, or someone that I'm really attracted to, then I'm going to have to be a better version of myself. And what does that look like? Well, I'm probably going to have like more money. I'm going to have more success. That person would be more like dedicated to what they're doing. They'd be a better leader. They'd have better internal skills. They'd have better communication skills. They'd have things set up. Their network would be better, and they'd be on their path and their journey, and you know, really convicted with what they want to do, and have all of those things sorted out, so that I would feel worthy enough to be with a partner, have a family, and have some children, which just blew my mind, especially like within the 6-7 month period. I was like, whoa, like, where is this coming from? So that was like really quite fantastic to have. In the gym also, my strength went up like crazy. Strength was through the roof. Gym progress went through the roof. Everything was just like crazy. And there's so much more energy and time, I feel, when you're on the NoFap train. It's really weird for how your brain works. What's one thing that some of the sex masters talk about was that spinal fluid and the fluid that holds all your sperm together is like exactly the same. And that transfers and goes up into your brain, which is really interesting. So if you're internalizing that and using it, there's some sort of way that like it must turn your brain on. I'm not 100% sure on the science, but when I was researching it, I'm like, okay, there's something there that sort of clicks. And yeah, it's pretty insane. Like, but the whole magnetic thing of like, they say that spinal fluid and the fluid in your scrotum, I'm trying to think of a better word than scrotum than just your balls, essentially is like where all your spiritual energy is, because it comes in and somehow, I can't remember exactly where it works in your brain, but something to do with the pineal gland, I think. Maybe, don't quote me on it. But it was talking about how using like that energy is very spiritual energy, spiritual fluid. And when it's used properly and you can internalize it, then sort of and when your libido energy is high, because that's what it does, is the universe sort of serves you and works for you. And it worked out really weird for me in just terms of just opportunities, and people would just walk into my life exactly when I needed them whilst this happened. Now, was this whole thing like hard, and what's been the difference? So it wasn't as hard as what I thought. As soon as the 7 weeks was like up, the 6-7 weeks, because that's like initially what's really hard, it was really quite easy, to the point where I almost got egotistic, like went to the other side of it and was like, I'm never going to masturbate or ejaculate again. This is way too good. But I did have like a partner 2.0 for a little, for a while. We were seeing each other, and I practiced the whole non-ejaculating like all the time during the day, during the week, to see what would actually happen. And only ejaculating once a week was great. And after looking at the science of John Gray and him talking about how if you ejaculate every single day, your testosterone drops by 50%. But if you ejaculate once a week, your testosterone increases by double. which is quite fantastic. So I was like, cool, let's stick to this. Now, did I fail? Absolutely yes, because sometimes you're having sex for the whole point of, not ejaculating just for the pleasure of it. And like, I would find that would charge me up, like as a guy, so much. Like I would get super charged if you were having sex and not ejaculating, which was it was like fantastic. But then when you did ejaculate, you'd feel like on top of the world as well. And the ejaculation itself, like the orgasm, was a lot more intense, which I find was actually quite fantastic, a lot more enjoyable than just if you are masturbating. If you're someone at the moment, you're masturbating a few times a week, once a day, a couple of times a day, if you're that guy, it's really, I could just say like it is just nowhere near as enjoyable as doing it once a week, and especially with someone who you find extremely attractive, especially if you've put in the work to pull them in, which is really cool. So yeah, that's sort of like been my journey with it. So as far as the timeline goes, it was a really hard, I'd say 2 weeks, like at first, because you're like, whoa, this is super overwhelming. Then weeks like from like 2 to 4 to 7 is when you get really tested in terms of being like, should I not? Like what's going to happen here? And then once that's sort of done, you're all good. After that, it's sort of it's like super easy. But what happens is, to be aware of is, you will get like I'm not just saying this as like a thing, like you will literally get like, compared to how, if you're masturbating normally, let's just say that's like person A, then you got person B who doesn't masturbate, like at all. They're just on the sex train. Is like person B and person A are just leagues above each other in terms of like brain and cognitive performance. You sort of become like superhuman, and it's crazy fantastic. And I think just as well, just putting it out there, like I think the longest time I went without ejaculating was something like 5 months, just for people out there, just to be like, what is going on? And man, insane. Like that last month for like focus and everything was insane. But when I did have sex, that experience itself was like levitating in the heavens and the clouds of like Mount Olympus or something. Like it was absolutely, I was like, this is one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life for like 3 seconds. No, I'm kidding. You guys are waiting for it. But no, seriously, it was one of the most best beautiful experiences ever, because I was just so aware and clear that I picked someone that I really wanted to have a sexual experience with, and went through the whole courting process, and it was the exact person that I wanted to have sex with, and there was no like mucking around or blah 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 blah. I was like, this is what's going to happen. And sort of, as I mentioned, when the universe serves you, it just does, and you figure a way out. Your brain is so powerful, and I believe that it gets really powerful, especially when you're on the NoFap train. So if you guys are on the edge, what should I do? You're thinking about something called, holy, what's the experience with NoFapping and all this stuff? Like, do I encourage it? Yes, I'd say for sure. If you haven't done the whole NoFap thing beforehand, definitely do it. I did do a podcast, linked somewhere here or here, with, I forgot his name right now, but you'll see it here. And we talked about sex, and he's a sex coach, and it was quite amazing. And one of the pieces of advice he gave me was, in the future, you might want to learn how to, for the pleasure side of things, develop a new relationship with NoFapping, just to like, pleasure yourself, because, sex is one of those things in our lives that is extremely important. And if even with a partner, learning that again could be quite fantastic and a useful skill. And there was some crazy stuff around that. I was like, 100%. But at the moment, it's serving me extremely well, and I don't see me for the like formidable future. But if you do, and you're considering it, I would say if you do make the decision, make sure you're 100% committed, because you're not going to get any of the benefits out of it if you're not. And if you're in a relationship, should you quit masturbating? 100%. It literally makes the sex a whole lot better, because even if you're frustrated in the relationship, for example, and you could like leave and go, or wank and feel better and be like, oh God, like release, whatever this is. When you're in the relationship, and if you can't, then you're gonna have to deal with that frustration then and there. Like, you guys are gonna have to talk it out. You're gonna have to talk about it, because you're gonna have this energy of lust and sexual energy just well up inside you, and you're gonna look at your partner and be like, okay, there's some frustrations here, there's some emotional disconnection, and all this stuff is going on, but I am so ridiculously turned on right now, and I can't control that. I'm filled with libido and all this sexual energy, and I can't sort it out until we sort this out. So it actually forces you to be a better partner as well. Not just a better man, better woman, better everything else. However, podcast is very focused towards men. If you are a girl, it's a little bit different. I did do the research because there's less release of like hormones and stuff. Like there's different hormones that get released from sex with girls and guys. And for guys, obviously, because we ejaculate, like one time, boom, catch you later. Obviously, if you can do more than that, then you are absolutely blessed, my friend. But for girls, because this is research stuff, because they can like keep going, it's a little bit different, the whole masturbation relationship thing. But people are watching porn and masturbating, like I encourage you guys to give it time, set yourself a limit. I did it with one of my clients. It was really cool. We did like a 6-week no ejaculation thing, and he failed I think it was like 4 or 5 times before he actually nailed it. And at the end of the 6-7 weeks, he just had all these crazy realizations, and it was like just fantastic to actually talk and go through everything. So I hope you guys learned something from this podcast. I try to keep it short, sharp, and shiny, just to like upgrade you on a few different things for the whole NoFap experience. I think it's quite fantastic, and just to recap, it's worked really well for my gym and my gym training and my strength and my ability to actually be in touch with my body because I'm more focused. My focus, my energy, my ability to literally talk and pick up the opposite sex and be attractive to the opposite sex has worked because I'm actually thinking about things, and that's really quite fantastic. I'm more motivated to find a long-term partner rather than casual and short-term partners. And I think that's it's a reward for men who have sorted themselves out, who can deal with themselves, who have emotional control, they're non-reactive, and they've, built something for themselves in terms of business. They're good leaders, and they would be a valuable dad, which is a goal of all of us. So it's made me a lot more motivated for that to happen. And there's just so many good connections and being a magnet in terms of just all these opportunities that keep coming up, and the networking is on point, and I just keep walking into all these really positive things that happen into my life. And it literally started with jumping on the NoFap train. So yeah, if I haven't convinced you guys, then well, goddamn. But yeah, I hope you guys like this podcast. Hope you guys like this video, and I hope you give us a like, share, and subscribe if you like any of these things. If you thought any of my points were interesting, please share them on your story, and please leave a comment. Send me a message. I would love to hear what you think about this. I'd love to hear it. And I have got a whole bunch of other resources. I'll link a couple around here in terms of the whole sex, the no masturbation, and quitting porn, and all these different things. Will be a few different links here, which are really quite fantastic, and other resources to listen to if you're being called or pulled to this thing, because it's a trend and it's fantastic. And yeah, to be honest, I'm all about it. So hope you got something from this. Big love. Peace.